Hey everyone, Matt here. Today's episode on 1982's made-for-TV movie, Mazes and Monsters, deals a lot with suicide and mental health issues, just in case that's something you don't want to listen to right now. Alright, here's the show.
You better roll them dice. You never know if it could change your life. Take a chance, you're neither wrong or right. You never know if you don't roll them dice. You better roll them dice. You never know if it'll change your
Hello everyone, this is Dungeon Master of None. I am Dungeon Master Rob.
I'm Dungeon Master Matt, and today we are talking to you. Finally, we have done a thing, we've done a bad thing.
We've done a very bad thing.
But we did it for you, so that you don't have to do it.
Yeah, we're ashamed and we feel bad, but we have done something. We sacrificed for you, and so we have literally a very special episode for you. It's actually very much a very special episode about the dangers of Dungeons and Dragons. Matt,
but mostly about and we'll get into this, the dangers of being an upper middle class white family with like parent issues.
Right, yes. If you live in New England and you belong to a WASP family, I would recommend that you go somewhere else.
Get out of there. Don't go to a liberal arts college. It will ruin you. Take your parents' advice. Yeah. Go to MIT. You'll be happier. You'll have a sweet job programming, because we watched Mazes and Monsters. Yes, that hit made-for-TV film from 1982 starring one Sir Thomas Hanks about the dangers of role-playing games.
Yeah, are we... I didn't actually look into this, but are we sure that it was made for TV? Or,
yes. Yeah. So direct-to-TV release on the Central Broadcasting System, CBS.
Yeah, because I noticed some cuts that were very clearly TV cuts, but I was not sure if it was a movie that had been intentionally made for TV, or if it and then released in theaters, or if it literally had aired on TV. So thank you for doing the research that I did not, because my brain was mush after watching this movie.
Right. This movie will destroy you. It would destroy any fan of D&D. It would destroy any sane person. But it's unintentionally hilarious and sad in very many ways. So a little background about Mazes and Monsters. If you play D&D, you may have heard of this. This is a made-for-TV movie, as we said, based off of a pretty, I think, well-selling book by one Rana Jaffe of the same name, that sort of hit at peak D&D popularity, first wave D&D popularity, and peak D&D scare.
What was the year of release for the book?
1982. The book, I think, was just barely after. I think it was like immediately optioned for a screenplay.
Yeah, oh, that's correct.
1981 was the book.
Yeah, so it very quickly...
Bam.
Yeah, very, very quickly, the movie came out in 82. Wow, Tom Hanks was 26 in this movie. He looked like a damn baby. He looked like a 19-year-old. Jesus Christ.
We get some really vintage Tom Hanks. This is like pre-Splash Tom Hanks.
Oh yeah, this is very, very early Tom Hanks.
Like, this was when, D&D was, everyone was afraid that if kids were playing D&D, they were going to kill themselves or go into, a weird steam tunnel and die, or get involved with Satanism.
Yeah, I'm not sure if this is before or after some of the really high-profile, satanic things and vaguely related deaths that drove the hysteria. But it was right around that time.
It was definitely after the news had come out about, this one sort of college student who had, mental health issues, and the sort of police latched on that he had in his notes a D&D campaign or D&D maps, and that sort of kicked things off and inspired the novel.
Oh, right. You're absolutely right. No, sorry. This was very early on. I thought this was later. So, yeah. The disappearance of James Dallas Egbert III. I'm sorry to mock the dead, but come on, James. Who disappeared from Michigan State University, and many people speculated that it had to do with, Dungeons and Dragons.
Stick around for a future episode, and we'll do a whole recap of the whole history of, bad, bothered about Dungeons and Dragons and all the hysteria that went on.
We'll talk about why this is all wrong.
That was a potential title for our podcast, by the way. Bad.
Oh, that's right, it was. That would yeah. I like ours, but that was a good. Yeah. Anyway, so it's based on this whole chain of really basically gossip. There were these newspaper stories that were largely inaccurate that Rona Jaffe wrote a novel about, and then they made this movie which follows the general gist of all that. Do you want to recap sort of the dramatis personae and the general plot of this before we go further?
Oh yeah, well we definitely have to do that because they're all introduced to us in an amazing sequence that is just screenwriting 101. I would point out that the screenwriter for this film is one Tom Lazarus, who you may know from Stigmata, a passable film from the 90s that I had completely forgotten I had seen. So yes, should we get into what happens in Mazes and Monsters so you don't actually have to watch this movie?
Yeah. By the way, I want to really be very clear about this. Do not watch this movie. It's not really even very fun to watch from it's bad standpoint. It's just not good. Don't watch this movie. Don't subject yourself to this. Definitely don't subject your significant other to this. Sorry, Matt.
Wife has some interesting things to say about this movie.
It's not worth your time. Don't do it. We'll tell you everything that you need to know. But yeah, let's jump into
I'm going to jump into the plot. I have one thing to say to you, Rob, which is I am the maze controller and I have absolute authority in this podcast. That's a line from the movie. All right.
Oh, God.
So, taking some great lessons, the opposite lessons from Die Hard, this film opens with sirens and ambulances and firemen and police officers pulling up on a scene of some kind. And then a hard-boiled detective gets out of a car, and they're looking for
very Columbo type looking character.
He's got a hat and everything. Detective Martini, in case you were wondering, some great names there. And he's asking about a missing kid, and we are told that 5 times in 10 seconds that his missingness is related to one Mazes and Monsters, a game for children.
Mazes and Monsters. Now, Mazes and Monsters is a fantasy role-playing game in which the players create an imaginary character. These characters are then plunged into a fantasy world of invented terrors. The point of the game is to amass a fortune without being killed. It's kind of a psychodrama, you might say, where these people deal with problems in their lives by acting them out. But in this case, there might be a loss of distinction between reality and fantasy, and possibly the loss of life in the process.
Roll credits 6 months earlier.
That's right. Oh, very clever. Incredible framing device here. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's more establishing shots than you could ever want, and we're introduced to our 4 main characters. Are you ready? Main character 1, JJ. JJ, we're introduced, is like an Upper West Side kid. He's walking around getting out of a taxi wearing a Prussian spiked helmet.
Yes. JJ likes to wear hats. That's how you know that he's a loser nerd, because he wears hats. And actually, the truth is, he is a loser nerd, and his hats suck. He wears a lot of bad hats. I want to defend JJ, but I can't.
Yeah, JJ might be the worst character. We're told later on in the film that he's only 16 and in college, which might explain some of this. At first I thought maybe he was just a Nazi, but yeah, he's wearing a spiked hat, and he meets with his overbearing mother, who has turned his bedroom into what can only be described as a scene from Space Odyssey, 2001: A Space Odyssey. It looks like that chamber where the main
his
character...
mother is some sort of art collector and or art critic, some sort of upper class New York socialite. She's completely insufferable in a different way than JJ is. Whole family sucks. Write him off. Also, he has a minor bird that speaks, And it's just like some dude's voice dubbed over the bird. Like it's
there's some great ADR work in this film, so shout out to the ADR department. JJ, I should also mention, his mother mentions he's a wunderkind, especially with that German hat, and he has an IQ of 109. Which
what a brilliant child. Truly an exceptional, belongs at esteemed Grant College.
Yes, he's attending Grant College, and we should point out that IQ tests are bullshit and a tool of oppression. Correct me if I'm wrong, Robert, but like 109 is like basically like the 55th percentile.
It's extremely average. Yes, I can't tell if this was meant to be like a joke, or if I don't know, the standards were lower in the 80s. I really have no idea.
Unless they said 190, which is not possible.
Well, no, but also if we're making things up, then maybe it is. I also, who knows? Either way, it's dumb.
So that's our member of our Mazes and Monsters Party 1, JJ. Number 2, the scene transitions to a completely different person, very abruptly, probably a commercial break, to Kate. Kate is our movie's Lady Smurf. She is the only female character besides a mother who has a speaking role.
This movie does not pass the Bechdel test, in case anybody wanted to know. But
the Bechdel test being a movie having a scene with 2 female characters where they talk about something other than mazes and monsters.
That's right.
Kate has a mom who is also an asshole. And I think this movie is really just about moms.
Yeah, it's very much about mother issues, for sure.
Kate's distinguishing trait is that she is a writer and possibly the author stand-in.
Yeah, she wants to write a novel, but she's struggling because she hasn't really lived, and her mom tells her, well, why don't you use your imagination? Dun, dun, dun.
Ooh, imagination. We're gonna hear some more about that, about the terrors of imagination.
There's a lot of extremely heavy-handed foreshadowing in this movie.
Yeah, our third main character, who we're introduced to next, is I believe his name is Daniel.
It's Daniel. They call him Danny sometimes.
I kept forgetting his name. I just thought of him as Fred from Scooby-Doo, because sans ascot, that's exactly what he looks like and acts like.
Yeah, he's got that 70s, 80s blonde surfer haircut and looks extremely average, though everyone talks about how much of a babe he is. I don't know. I'm not seeing it, but
his special blonde, thing is he dropped out of MIT to go to where our film takes place, prestigious liberal arts school, Grant University. He's a computer whiz, though we see none of his computering.
I don't think there's a single computer in this movie at all. Definitely not one that Daniel has, but whatever.
But his struggle, which is never developed, is he wants to make computer games, and his dad's like, computer games? There'll never be any jobs in that.
And our final character.
We finally get just the money shot of Sir Thomas Hanks, who plays Robbie, whose parents are terrible to each other and cannot communicate.
Truly awful in a overcrowded field of terrible parents, far and away the worst. His mom is drunk on the way to drop him off at Grant College. His dad is an asshole.
I hate it when you drink.
I drink to get through the day.
They're completely ignoring him, and it's incredible. Truly wonderful people. All of these people's parents suck, and I think that's what the movie is really about.
And I can't say that all, no mental health issues or personal life issues are caused by parents, but this movie sort of implies that if your parents were perfect, you would never have any problems, which is sort of a weird 80s kind of thing to say.
It definitely takes a stance on mental health, that it's environmental and caused by your shitty parents, which is half true, partially true, but there's definitely definitely the worse your parents are in this movie, the more likely to be fucked up you are, because guess who's the most fucked up of all?
Robbie, because he has the most fucked up parents and the most fucked up relationship to mazes and monsters. Robbie.
We should also mention, one critical piece of Robbie's backstory I think this comes out about the same time, but is that he had a brother whose name was Hall, which is a very stupid name for a person. Or Hall, is it right? It's Hall, right?
It's Hall.
Hall. Anyway, so his brother Hall ran away to New York and never came back when he was young. And Tom Hanks gave him all of his money, and he still feels guilt about giving him money, that if he hadn't given him money, that Hall would not have run away, which is an extremely upper middle class concern. Anyway, that's not really well developed, but it's something that we are told that really strongly influences Robbie.
The other thing we're told about Robbie is that he is perhaps the only person in the history of humankind to have dropped out of university because he played Mazes and Monsters too much. You can get addicted to a lot of things, but you can only play role-playing games so much. He's not even a DM. He was just a player.
A player.
I'm guessing he played once a week and then spent the rest of his time thinking about his player character. But he had to drop out.
Yeah. One common theme is that all of these people are told that they play too much. None of them are really told that Mazes and Monsters is by itself bad. They're all just told that they play too much. They spend too much time on it, or most of them are. Most of their parents are critical of the game, and this is the critical thing, is that, or the key thing about it is that it takes up too much time, which they, as wealthy, waspy children, should be spending furthering their careers and getting jobs doing annoying upper middle class stuff.
The plot continues. All of our four main characters arrive at the university. Robbie reads the unlikely flyer, Mazes and Monsters players wanted, must be 9th level. And it turns out that he is in fact a 9th level Mazes and Monster player. He had another character of 9th level, and this qualifies you to play Mazes and Monsters at 9th level if you've had another character.
Yeah, the actual game of Mazes and Monsters, as anybody who actually plays role-playing games will immediately suss out, appears to be very poorly understood. And there's a sort of like a general level of power that relates to how long you've been playing the game and transfers from game to game, and
Here's an interesting quote for you, Rob.
Yeah, go ahead.
Here's an interesting quote for you about how Mazes and Monsters...
It's just very weird, yeah.
I played a game called Mazes and Monsters a little too much.
You're kidding. What level?
Ninth level.
So am I.
Oh.
Isn't it wonderful to be finally creating your own scenarios?
Yeah, and your own fantasies, too. I'm really gonna miss it.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So not only there's a weird parallel between how far you advance in the game and how much power you have outside of the game, which is a very it's just
you can
all
only
very
write
strange.
your own adventures once you've reached 9th level, which that's an interesting take on a role-playing game. Anyway, after this, Robbie and JJ meet. Robbie is invited to their long-running Mazes and Monsters campaign, and our next scene is just it's right out of, I want to say, the Antonio Banderas, Salma Hayek fuck scene from, was it Desperado? Where they're sitting around surrounded by, I want to say, about 40 goddamn candles.
There's a lot of candles. There's a lot of
candles.
Monsters. Way too many candles. You do not need that many candles.
However, I will point out, Mazes and Monsters remind me, I've lit candles during my Dungeons & Dragons sessions. They definitely add something. You probably don't
candles
need
are good. You just
Desperado
need a
levels of candles.
Again, 3 candles is good. More than that, and you're setting the atmosphere for an orgy. No more than 3 candles.
Right. Robbie joins the game. He has a Holy Man class player, Pardue. We see some 2d12 rolled for the game, and boom, they're off. And this is the crazy thing about this movie, is this whole thing's about Mazes and Monsters, and I want to say, how much time does playing Mazes and Monsters actually take up in this film?
If we count just the tabletop version of it, and we'll get into how that changes, about 5 minutes, I would say.
See, this was the most disappointing thing to me. I was like really hoping to see some like bad reenactments of what Tom Lazarus and Ronna Jaffe thought Dungeons and Dragons was. But yeah, we literally maybe only see 5 minutes of them actually playing the game.
I'm Glacia the fighter. I have great strength and courage, strong armor, many weapons, and I've won the mighty talking sword of Lothia.
So they have one scene which establishes what it is, and then they play again after there's some. I think that mostly the stuff in between is like romance between Tom Hanks.
Okay, this is what happens next. They're sitting down.
Ahead. So I'm very excited about the second session of Mazes and Monsters.
Well, you can't skip ahead. You can add your comments then, but these are the movie rules. We got to give the whole movie because we don't want anyone else to see this.
I'm sorry.
So Robbie and Katie are sitting down. They're sitting across from each other, and this movie is not very sexy. However, there is some like Robbie and Katie eye fucking going on while they're playing D&D. It is with candlelit is the most sensual D&D playing I have ever seen.
Absolutely. It's far and away so much sexier than any D&D game has ever been. I have played in mixed gender groups where some people are romantically involved and it is not sexy. And if it were sexy, there's no way it would ever be anywhere near this sexy. It is entirely unprecedented for any game to be this erotic, this romantically charged. So yeah, after the first game,
and then we're counting this in our 5 minutes. There is a montage, 80s style, of them playing a lot of Mazes and Monsters. We find out, as Rob mentioned, that Robbie has an older brother, Paul, that ran away through a really terrible, long dream sequence.
Oh, yeah, it's a truly interminable dream sequence where Tom Hanks is, like, running in place in the cheesiest of old movie styles and calling out for his brother. And there's, like, a weird spotlight on him. It's really very terrible. But then we find out about Hall, and he confesses to Kate that he's still having bad dreams about his brother.
Right. So our main characters pair off. Robbie and Kate fall in love. Daniel and JJ bond. We find out that JJ is suicidal. This is not really ever explored again, but he just sort of drops he's suicidal, and then everyone kind of moves on.
Yeah, he takes his minor bird to these caverns, which play an important role later. What are they called?
Don't worry,
Pequod. I'm not skipping ahead. This is the right place.
Yes, the Pequod Caverns.
Pequod Caverns.
That's a Moby Dick reference that makes no sense.
And I guess it's just supposed to indicate that we are in New England. But yeah, he takes his minor bird to these caverns, and he's like, I'm going to kill myself in these caverns. Wouldn't that be a great place to die? And then he's like, but wait, what if instead we played Mazes and Monsters here? The actor playing JJ is far and away the worst.
Yes.
Very, very bad. Yeah.
Robbie, and this may be one of the like most accurate portrayals of like overclingy nerds in the entire movie that gets most everything else wrong. Robbie then asks Kate, after dating for probably like 10 days, to move in with him in his dorm room by purchasing a double bed.
Yeah, it's pretty uncomfortable. She doesn't like fully reject him, but she says, "Hey, we got all the time in the world," and that it's too soon. And yeah, Robbie is spurned from taking the relationship further.
And then we get our next and really only scene besides our introduction of them playing Mazes and Monsters. JJ, distracted by being sad and depressed and being a weird hat-wearing loser, is presented with a challenge where there is a treasure at the bottom of a pit, and then the maze controller, the dungeon master, played by Daniel, says there's a treasure down there, but JJ, it could be a trap. Then JJ's character, Freelick, decides to just jump down and then is immediately killed. No saving throw, no nothing. It's a huge DM dick move.
It could be a legendary treasure of the Generac, or it could be a trap.
Freelick jumps into the pit to gather the treasure. How much does Freelick get?
It's a trap.
No.
The pit is filled with sharp, gem-encrusted spikes. Freelick, the fanatic of Glossamere, is impaled and dies.
Part you save him. Use your power to raise the dead.
Well, I can't. I don't have enough points to raise the dead. Oh, hell.
Aw, JJ, that was really stupid, jumping into the pit without using your sonar first. Really stupid. Why did you do that?
Hey, cheer up, JJ. You can start again as a new character.
Oh, it'll take him forever to gather power.
Well, I didn't kill him.
Did so.
You weren't paying attention.
Hey, let's not fight about it.
Very, very dick move, though. I do want to point out that I think Daniel really did a good job of prefacing the danger. Again, this is something we talk about all the time by saying it could be a trap. But,
it's a real master class in how to dungeon master. It's to always say, hey, there's a treasure chest here. It could be treasure or it could be a trap. What do you want to do?
So, JJ, of course. So, here's the thing, Matt. I thought that he was just being a tremendous dumbass, but it occurs to me later that maybe he was doing this on purpose. What do you think?
I think he was trying to die because he really wanted to be the maze controller, because as Kate points out, and I think this is a great idea, his character Freelick is, I'm guessing, a bard. It's not really clear, but Kate says, JJ, why didn't you use your sonar ability?
That's right.
And I think all bards should have a sonar ability.
I agree. It's truly amazing. I imagine he's just sort of the generic. Remember how in early editions of D&D, like bards, rogues, and whatever were all grouped into like one general, thief category. That's probably just what he is.
Yeah. They can't res him, so JJ.
That's right. It's like Pardew doesn't have enough power points or something. Doesn't have
enough. We know we've established a couple things about mazes and monsters. It's base 2d12. And they have power points, and bards thieves get a sonar ability. JJ comes back from his cave spelunking, using a weird torch that he made himself that looks like a potato masher or something like that, and presents to the group that he is ready to present them with an evolution of mazes and monsters, the future of role-playing games, and I got super excited. I was like, what's going on here?
Yeah. So here's the really tremendous thing is that the vast majority of the game or of the movie is actually about a LARP. It's not about a TTRPG at all. And like they ditched the tabletop aspect very early on.
And I'm sure someone else picked this up, but maybe, this movie invented LARPing. I don't know. It's 1982.
We'd have to do some research, but I would not be surprised if this is at the forefront of LARPing. But yeah, so JJ presents this idea.
Evolves the game.
That's right.
By turning it into a LARP.
Which just means that they actually physically go to the Pequod Caverns and adventure there in person. Again, just making it into a LARP. And so JJ presents this idea, and they're all into it because I don't know why. It sounds awful to me, but they're all into it. Everybody is very game in this movie for whatever dumbass idea everyone presents. And
that's right. Yeah. Well, I think JJ can really sell this LARPing mazes and monsters in an actual cavern system, because when they go there, he possesses the supernatural ability to always speak and see the other players despite not being seen. I don't know if he's like hanging from the rafters, Spider-Man style, but they explore a very bad set of caverns, and JJ's voice is always with them, guiding them through the maze.
Yeah, I guess we're meant to believe that JJ has advanced knowledge of these cavern systems and can see the players without being seen, though it is very unclear how that is supposed to work. But yeah, everywhere they go, JJ is able to speak to them in an echoey voice, and so be the omnipresent maze controller. And so he leads them on honestly a pretty boring, in my opinion, adventure. They find some very extremely bad riddles and clues. I'm like still not super clear.
Skeleton in there.
He borrows a skeleton.
We spend about 15 minutes on the subplot line of JJ borrowing a skeleton from the biolab. It gives us our only like non-white person speaking role in the biology professor who loans him his favorite skeleton.
Does he pay him? I forget what JJ gives him for the. Like, he like, just, like, bribes him to borrow the skeleton, right?
Unspecified favors. I don't know. It's very complicated. He has to come back on a Saturday. It matters not at all for the plot, and it's very confusing why.
It's, like, nothing to do with anything except the skeleton jumps out and scares Kate, who, despite being the obvious frontliner as their only fighter. What is Daniel's class? Do you remember?
I think Daniel. Well, he was the maze controllers first, but after
I think he's a ranger or something like that.
Yeah, he's a ranger. I thought he might have been a wizard. I can't remember.
Oh, maybe.
He never is actually playing, so it's pretty unclear.
Yeah, even in the once he becomes a player in the maze, it's like not actually clear like what his role is.
Kate's a fighter. Kate's a fighter. A nimble fighter.
Nimble fighter. Yep. Anyway, so she gets scared by the skeleton, and then they find some clues that the maze controller has left. It is very clear from their discussions that they are motivated by treasure, which I will say is good. A fine understanding of how players operate. That would maybe be the best thing about the screenwriter's understanding of role-playing games. So they go in and they're concerned and they don't love the caverns and they're frightened, but they want to know where JJ hid the treasure.
Right.
And so that
they
keeps
go
them going.
so far as I think Daniel even heads to the caverns when they're not playing to try and find the treasure, which is like this defeats the points of this.
Well, later on, they try to cheat, or at least one of them tries to cheat. One or both of them?
What is the treasure? I wonder. It's like is it actual gold or like some really sweet drugs?
One has to wonder because nobody is ever rewarded with treasure. We never actually get to that part of the game, so it's unclear if this is just something very exciting for your character or if they're actually handing out like goodie bags or something.
So they're in these caverns, and this is actually some really good advice. They split the party to search for the treasure while they're playing, to, I would say, disastrous results.
Oh, tremendously bad. Catastrophically.
This might be the worst splitting of the party, consequence-wise, in the history of role-playing games.
Oh, far and away the worst thing that has ever come from splitting the party, which is already a very bad idea.
They split the party. Robbie doesn't want them to. And
that's right, Robbie doesn't want to.
Gives us a voiceover line that is perhaps the, hey, it's the moral of the story. The most frightening monsters are the ones that exist in our minds. Because after they split the party, Robbie imagines a Goreville?
There's a Goreville, whatever the fuck that is.
Which is a monster...
looks like somebody repurposed the creature from the Black Lagoon's, like, rubbery suit and then, like, I don't know, put some, like, a Minotaur's head on it or something like that.
Just like imagine something from, like, the original Star Trek or something. It's a weird rubber monster.
It's very bad. It's just some dude in a bad suit. And he freaks out, he draws his tiny knife, and screams for help. And then stabs the Goreville, which is
imaginary.
Which turns out to be nothing. His friends arrive, and he's staring at nothing on the ground, and they're like, oh, Robbie, as if he hadn't, like, just seconds before been, like, having a nervous breakdown.
Yeah, splitting the party literally causes Robbie, Tom Hanks, to have a mental break and basically become his character, and just he's freaked out. So don't split the party, folks, especially if you're adventuring in
really
abandoned mines or whatever.
some really exciting like inter-character stuff. He gets like really like upset because he's only supposed to use his knife when faith and words have failed him, and he stabbed the monster.
Pardieu is a very lawful, good, holy man.
Oh, Pardieu is an extremely holy man.
Though by first edition rules, he shouldn't be using edged weapons at all.
No, he should have a mace. This is based off of a really weird perpetual myth that clerics going to war or something like that weren't allowed to draw blood, and so that's why they used blunt weapons, which, if you've ever, I don't know, seen anybody hit with a club, any idiot knows is not true and is one of the weirdest historical myths that has ever existed. Anyway,
Rob, when you hit people with a mace or a club, it just knocks them out.
That's right. It just does bludgeoning damage and they fall asleep. Anyway, so that night, Tom Hanks has a dream about the Great Hall. And the Great Hall, he says, I love you. I want to be a good, Pardieu, you need to blah, 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 do some stuff. And he's like, I want to be a better holy man.
He looks like God from the Star Trek where they go see God.
And he tells Pardieu that he has to be more, I think he literally tells him he has to be celibate or something.
Yeah, he's a no-fap God.
He's got to be pure. And so the following
Which
day...
I'm like, this movie could not get more bizarre, I thought, after the Goreville. But then I was hit with the dream sequence where a Dungeons & Dragons god tells a cleric to not fuck.
Yeah, and then the next day he's studying, and Kate comes and wants to, trying to get frisky with him. And he's
she's a little horny.
Yeah, she wants it. And then, but then... Tom Hanks.
Tom Hanks, vintage Tom Hanks, I would say he is, he got better with age, but young Tom Hanks could be a teen heartthrob these days.
Teen heartthrob,
he
for
is
sure.
the Zac Efron of his days.
Real babe. But he says, oh, Kate, I love you, but we just, we can be together, or we can't be together, we can't, I think he specifically says, we can't physically be with each other, They could be a lot more obscure about this, but they it's specifically oh, we can't fuck. It's very on the nose. And
imagine the conversation is we can be together, but I want to be clear, no more fucking. Also, touching, not great.
Yeah, touching, not so good. Anyway, so Kate's obviously what did I do wrong? Why doesn't he love me? The movie starts to get pretty fuzzy for me after this.
They split up. There's about 2 minutes of sad saxophone music playing.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And then we're treated with Rebound Guy as Kate meets with Fred, or Danny at the Fat City Bar, which is a great name for a bar. I don't know why I put that in my notes, but they start to get a little intimate and friendly now that they've split up. Robbie, Tom Hanks, starts blessing people. They all kind of shrug off. They're like, everyone's what a great joke Robbie. Based on your character, Pardieu, the holy man. Nothing's wrong with you.
Everyone seems to think this is just a little quirk and not an incredibly bizarre and concerning thing to start doing. But yeah, he starts blessing people. I think even wearing, he wears his robes to a Halloween party. Where he has another psychotic break, or
now everyone should dress up like their D&D character for Halloween. We've all done it. But if you couple that with you starting to talk in fake old-timey speech with these and thous, and all of a sudden not fucking anymore, you should be worried for that person's mental health.
Absolutely. And yeah, if you keep doing it after people stop enjoying it, then you're weird and an asshole. Which is exactly what Robbie does. And then again, everyone's oh, that's just Robbie. No one's incredibly alarmed.
So yes, Daniel and Kate get together. Daniel, as we've mentioned, continues sneaking off to the mine. Kate, worried about Robbie, finds him there. He's trying to find the treasure. Daniel, in one of the greatest reference lines from the movie, says that he feels like he's Mr. Spock from Star Trek and wasn't sure that he has feelings.
God damn it, that's right.
Which I want to point out as a Star Trek fan, Vulcans have very deep feelings. They just choose not to express them, and they have complete control of them, but it doesn't mean that they don't have feelings.
I think that this line is supposed to express that Daniel is a nerd and establish, I don't know, some character depth, but it just like really just like falls extremely flat.
Yeah. I thought they were gonna go with Daniel because they all like have in the like 80s framing of this problems, and I expected them to like list one of the characters' problems as being gay. And I thought Daniel was gay for a while, but no.
Oh yeah, that would have been an interesting twist, but nope.
He likes the ladies. He's just awkward.
just weird, just awkward. Despite we're told repeatedly being a babe.
So yes, Robbie, after having more disturbing dreams and another psychotic break at a crazy Halloween party, like the teens like to have in Halloween. Has another vision and decides he must go on a quest. He calls his drunk mom, who doesn't know what's going on, and he leaves, leaving only behind, and this is the straight ripped from the headlines part, his maps of a maze that he was creating called The Great Hall, and he also writes on it, 2 Towers.
The 2 Towers. And so this is what brings us to our opening scene.
Yes,
where his
an hour. I wrote this down. 1 hour and 7 minutes.
Ooh,
into
is that
the
long?
film.
God damn. Yeah,
we're
opening
starting
scene
over,
where,
folks.
Where the I think his friends like tell the cops or something. It doesn't matter.
They're super cagey, but we are introduced to my favorite character, Detective Martini. Who's a bad cop and loves to question people.
And so they're led to believe that Tom Hanks or Robbie is in the Pequod Caverns, and so they have a big manhunt, and there's this big newscast where a reporter looks at the camera and dramatically says, "Game gone wrong" or something like that. I don't know,
which is great and full of tension because we've seen this scene before. If you were wondering if they were trying to pad this out, if the 15 minutes of acquiring a skeleton wasn't enough from you, repeating the opening scene, which is a good 5 minutes long, was a tip-off.
So the kids try to avoid letting anybody know that like they were playing Mazes and Monsters with Robbie because then they would be implicated, and if he's dead, then that's bad.
The kids are like really willing to let Robbie die to cover their own asses, which is really a very true WASP college thing to do.
It's incredibly on point.
Here's a life lesson: if you're implicated in a crime or anything bad, your WASP friends will throw you under the bus.
By the way, the great thing is that they never suffer any consequences for this. Like Martini strongly suspects that they're all involved, but never accuses them, and then nothing ever comes of this, as we'll discuss later. But he takes them all into an interrogation room and asks them a lot of revealing questions, calls Kate a slut,
Martini is perhaps one of the worst cops ever. I kind of, despite him being bad, I kind of love him for it. He brings them in and he says, "We have no idea where the body is," referring to Robbie.
It's just
he's like, and they're like, "The body? He's dead?" And he's like, "Well, I don't actually know, but he's probably dead." And they're like, "Oh my God." So Detective Martini tells them Robbie could be dead just to fuck with them, which is great.
Yeah.
Robbie a doper.
And then he goes by one and insults them and accuses them of being terrible people, which, in his defense, many of them are, or all of them are, because they're lying about knowing where Robbie is. And then, anyway, they more or less finish the manhunt.
He also tells them our working theory is one of the players in a Mazes and Monsters game killed them. So they don't crack despite being implicated as the number one suspect.
They stand strong in their commitment to never get in trouble for their friend disappearing. It's also, the timeline is really wonky here because...
Yeah. How long have they been at university? How long has Robbie been missing? We don't know any of these things.
It's very unclear. So anyway, after a little while, they conclude that either Robbie's dead, and then I think Martini at some point says, "I don't think he's even in there." And then they
the police are searching the caves.
And then the students revisit Robbie's maps and do some sleuthing of their own, and they're like, "Oh gosh, what's the Great Hall?
They
that's
turn
not
into
Pequod Caverns."
They turn into the Scooby Gang, and we get one of the great lines from Kate, which is like, "Fellas, why don't we use our Mazes and Monsters skills to find Robbie?"
And so they revisit the idea of the twin towers, the 2 towers,
and they're like, "Oh, gee, where are the 2 towers?"
Oh, that's Tolkien. I think they say Tolkien.
2 towers. That's Tolkien. Yeah, they have truly
and then at some
deep
point,
knowledge.
I forget what it is that tips them off, but they're like, wait, that's not Tolkien. That's the World Trade Center in New York.
Oh my God, Robbie's gonna do a 9/11. He's in contact with that one bomber guy.
That's right.
It's 1994.
Anyway, so then we immediately, or more or less immediately, cut to Robbie.
Oh yeah, hard cut to Robbie walking down the mean streets of 1980s New York City.
Of New York, and again, he's been missing for like a week. I mean, it's very like unclear, but like, how did he just get to New York? And like, why is like how long has he been wandering the streets? Like, again, like this part was very confusing to me. Anyway, he's wandering the streets.
My theory is the entire like New York section was shot by like the B unit, and I forgot to look in the credits because I feel like the director was like, give me a stock footage walking down the mean streets of New York scenes, because it's like straight out of like, you know, like a Hard Weekend or something, because like Robbie's walking down the streets and there's prostitutes and non-white people, and he continually gets bumped in the shoulder by mean New Yorkers who tell him, hey, watch where you're going here. You know,
it's great. It's one of the best scenes in the movie. Death Wish vision of New York City. A very, very
ripped straight from the upper class white psyche of fear of the inner city,
terror of the inner city. It's incredibly on brand for the 80s. But all in all, like Robbie's entire time in New York is like 24 hours, if that.
Possibly. It's again incredibly hard to tell.
So anyway, so smash cut to Robbie wandering the streets. And by the way, we haven't seen him for like 45 minutes of this movie. Like he is just like literally, the viewer has no clue where he is. But then all of a sudden we're seeing from his viewpoint again. He's wandering the mean streets.
Yeah, this movie does a bait and switch. They put a beautiful Tom Hanks on the cover. And you think he's going to be the protagonist, but yeah, he's missing from the entire second act. It's mostly about Kate, who is like the least reprehensible of all the people.
She's the least bad,
which
far
is
away.
Fine. But yeah, less Tom Hanks than I was expecting.
So Tom Hanks wandering the mean streets, as you might expect, as again you can see this coming literally a mile away. But shortly after wandering around cluelessly yelling for his brother Hall, he is accosted by some punks wearing leather jackets.
Let's just pause right here to talk about these muggers, because I don't know who's in charge.
I love them so much.
They're both they look like halfway between like 50s greasers, but maybe more like what rockabillys look like today, because they're wearing some like pretty sweet like black leather jackets, like 80s cool biker jackets. They don't have bikes though.
I imagine
they're my favorite characters, I have to say.
They're far and away the coolest characters. They're punks. It's not super clear what they want from Tom Hanks. I guess just money, but like they like corner him in an alley and start threatening him.
He runs away, and by the way, they chase him like at least 3 New York City blocks.
He runs a long way, and they chase him a long way. Again, white people fear of inner city violence, totally like, you know, unmoored from reality, but they really want to get whatever the fuck it is that Tom Hanks has. I guess the whole like sweater and sneakers look is a clear indicator of kid who has money. I don't really know.
I don't know. Tom Hanks looks like shit at this point. He looks like a drug addict.
It's not like he's wearing like, you know, upper class clothes. He's just got like a sweater and jeans on. But they chase him down and corner him, and he draws his tiny cleric's knife and threatens them, which he holds awkwardly in 2 hands, like Tom Hanks's knife fighting style.
Well, Rob, if you dual wield if you wield the knife in 2 hands, you get your strength bonus times 1.5. So you know.
And again, in the most like predictable turn of events, the thug is suddenly a Goreville.
See, I thought they were saying a Gore-Bill.
Maybe like it's a Goreville, I don't know.
But they don't have bills. Goreville, that makes much more sense.
Anyway, it's a Goreville, and Tom Hanks stabs it, and then it turns out that he stabs a thug.
Kills someone, it's great.
The thug doesn't look very badly injured, but we're led to
might
believe
not be dead. It's a flesh wound.
We're led to believe that Tom Hanks killed him, or thinks that he killed him. So anyway, Tom Hanks is like ripped back to reality, and he runs screaming to a phone booth where he calls Kate and
he does some acting here, which is the first time we've seen that from Tom Hanks. The rest of the movie, he's just mumbled his lines. So
he hysterically calls Kate and tells her where he is.
Kate, I'm in New York.
And she tells him to go to JJ's mom's house, which is somewhere in New York.
I just want to pause right here. Robbie correctly identifies, and good for him, where he is in New York, something I have struggled. He's at 40th and 8th Avenue or something, or 40th Avenue and 8th Street, and he makes the call. Kate tells him to go to JJ's parents' house, which is at 605 East 70th. Now, this is 30 north-south blocks and like at least 8 long east-west blocks. That's a long fucking way. That's the other side of town. Like, Robbie is over by a Penn Station, and she tells him to go to the Upper East Side.
Since these are very wealthy kids, that he's meant to take a cab, in which case it wouldn't matter. But maybe our New York listeners can tell us a little bit more about this.
My inclination is that's a long fucking way, and walking in Manhattan is exhausting, so...
I assume that she assumes that he has money and can take a cab. These are all rich kids. They could have sent a car for him. If his mother has like a fucking Upper East Side penthouse, then she could have easily sent a car for him, but whatever.
Also, 605 East 70th Street is the Presbyterian Hospital. So maybe this was actually a double cross by Kate to get him checked into a mental institution. So, good job, Kate, getting him the help he needs.
So shortly after this call, Tom Hanks loses his lucidity,
goddamn mind,
and starts having another psychotic break and descends into the steam tunnels beneath New York City, where he meets with a crazy old man who he
goes into the subway. It's incredibly easy to get into the subway access tunnels, and I've looked for this when I've been in subway systems. It is not easy to get into those things. Okay, you will get arrested.
I actually believe, though, that in the 80s it was much easier. There are plenty of stories. I mean, this is the part that I have some trouble, or not so much trouble believing, because I think back in the day they didn't have rules for shit like this, and it was a lot easier to do. Read that story about mole people. Anyway, so he goes down into the subway tunnels and steam tunnels, and he meets with a crazy old man who I don't remember what he tells him. I'm trying to get through. We're at 15 minutes.
We're close.
We got so much movie left to go. And then he's looking for his brother, the Great Hall. And I actually
the homeless man, he asked the homeless man about dragons, referring to the subway, and then the two towers.
Because he hears the trains going by above, and he's like, "Who are those dragons?"
Yes.
Yeah, anyway,
it gets real cheesy and hard to believe. Anyway, the homeless man kindly directs him to like a good New Yorker helping out a tourist to where the World Trade Center is downtown. So he goes to the World Trade Center. The Scooby gang of the other characters arrive, find that he never showed up at JJ Parent's house, and they painfully deduce where he might be, which is, the Twin Towers.
Right. Yeah. It takes them substantially more time than it ought to deduce the very obvious thing.
Also,
so they
Kate, a sophomore, 19-year-old, props on her. She's a badass. She's driving in Manhattan, which is something I cannot do. So
that's true. I'm surprised that any of these rich-ass kids from the East Coast can drive, but they can. At least one of them can. So anyway, they go and they find Robbie, who is...
They find him after the most boring and probably 10-minute long chase scene.
Incredibly tedious.
Low stakes, slow elevators. We get the same scene of them going up some escalators at the World Trade Center, RIP, like 4 different times before they finally confront Robbie on the roof of, I think it's World Trade Center South. World Trade Center 2, or whichever one that is.
Not entirely familiar enough to know, but it's one of them, and they find him again after a very it's not good. It's very boring. Yeah.
And he's not gonna do a 9/11 after all. It turns out he's about to jump off the top to kill himself.
Hall. Sorry.
Yes, to join Hall.
I have spells. I'm going to fly.
You don't have enough points. I am the maze controller.
But using a clever bit of Mazes and Monsters ability, Daniel asserts his Dungeon Master authority and says, I am the maze controller and I have absolute authority in this game. You can't jump off. Kate tells him he doesn't have enough spell points to jump off. And through their knowledge of mazes and monsters, Robbie is saved.
Pardue is talked down from the edge and rejoins his friends. In the exciting climax of Mazes and Monsters, he decides not to kill himself.
We get treated to one last 3 months later.
That's right. Then more time passes.
Happy endings for all, as Rob mentioned. Kate's writing her novel. Daniel is studying computer programming. JJ isn't wearing hats anymore.
He didn't kill himself.
And Robbie didn't kill himself, except, maybe not.
JJ didn't kill himself.
JJ didn't kill himself, and he stopped wearing hats.
I guess JJ's suicidal tendencies were solved by becoming maze controller, or by Robbie taking the... I don't know. It's weird that comes up, but was never mentioned again, because JJ seems entirely fine after that. But yeah, so they drive out to Tom Hanks's drunk mom's vast countryside estate.
Yeah, they're loaded. They have a barn and a 3-story mansion.
Yeah, it's real nice. There's a big old lake out back. And they're told, they're met by the mom, and she says that, I don't blame any of you for what happened, which is very generous of her.
Well, I mean, they did save his life.
But they also lied to the cops.
Oh, yeah, that's everything. Right. They also threw him under the bus, so the cops couldn't find him. So, and Tom Hanks now fully believes he is Pardue, and that he is staying with a kindly innkeeper through the power of an ever-renewing coin that he pays them every night. Which I'm not sure what that's for.
I assume he gives his mom and dad a quarter every single night to satisfy his insane psychotic fantasy that he's Pardue. And being loving parents, they indulge him, which I guess he can't imagine staying in the inn without the exchange of goods and services. So...
he only recognizes the others as their character names, including the nimble fighter Kate, and then the movie switches to Kate's final closing narration, which says they played the game one last time, which I'm guessing implies they never visit Robbie again. But yeah, they play Mazes and Monsters with him one last time, which is pretty cool.
Strong implication is that they never see Robbie again. Even though... I'm imagining that if he's living on the soft, fancy estate, they can just show up and play Mazes and Monsters with him. If he's already insane and thinks he's Pardue,
but
it doesn't
they
really
never
hurt
do, which is so...
They never do.
Such a bitchy move. Anyway, Kate ends up the best. She uses all this as fodder for a novel, capitalizing off of Tom Hanks' mental health issues.
Deep, mental, psychosis.
Kate, stone cold. Love her.
Stone cold Kate, but yeah. They all live happily ever after, except for Tom Hanks, who believes he's the holy man Pardue and can never go adventuring because he's not allowed to, and you need a maze controller for that or something. Again, not super clear why he can't go, but anyway.
So, everyone, that's Mazes and Monsters. We absolutely loved, hated it. Don't watch it. It's pretty boring, but absolutely hilarious if you're a player of Dungeons and Dragons. So I have some final questions for you, Rob. Are you ready?
I can't wait. I'm ready.
All right. So my first is, if you and I, Rob, sat down over a pot of coffee and hashed out the rules as written of the Mazes and Monsters tabletop role-playing system, what would they look like?
So I'm imagining actually that they would be something like Burning Wheels, something that's a lot more decision driven and a lot more powerful and impactful in terms of player decisions, and also that your character persists in across campaigns or something in a way that isn't currently the case in most home Dungeons and Dragons. So I guess something like Pathfinder Society or Adventure League. That would explain the whole I have a 9th level character that I can bring to this game in an entirely different place.
Oh yeah, good point. Also, strange restrictions on who can be a maze controller. You have to level up a little bit as player before you can be the dungeon master. Also, they seem to the only dice that were rolled were 2 12-sided dice. So I'm guessing that is the core mechanic, which is an interesting choice. There's also spell points, where those are mentioned twice. So, spell point
and again,
system.
I imagine that would be something like what they have in Burning Wheel, a renewable resource of very limited power points based on your actions or that you get at the start of every game. Maybe something like hero points from Dungeons and Dragons or from Pathfinder.
Also, you have to spend a lot of time painting weird two-dimensional miniatures that bear no relation at all to the characters as they're described. I forgot there was a great miniature painting scene.
Everybody has to draw their own maps of the maze.
That is very essential.
This is really actually like a cartography simulator. That's what it's really about.
The other thing about the system is no elves or dwarves or anything like that. Maybe they were afraid of getting sued.
We don't know that. We don't know that they aren't elves or dwarves.
I'm just using what is canon, Rob, to deduce from there.
It never says that Pardue or Friedlich or what's the...
Well, they never say it's not a sci-fi game either, Rob.
All right.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So definitely no. Yeah. Very generalized classes. Definitely nothing as precise as a barbarian or as a rogue or as a sorcerer. Definitely just I would say 3 overarching classes of martial, wizard, or martial,
holy man.
Holy man and arcane spellcaster of some sort. Oh, and rogue or a thief type.
A thief type that gets a sonar ability.
Right.
We don't know much about the monsters in it. We know there are Gorvilles and wild, I believe they're called Generis, and the villain Ak-Oga, which is a great villain name that I might steal. Ak-Oga.
And Ak-Oga is some sort of wizard, right? Or spellcaster?
Yeah, he's an evil necromancer or something like that.
Oh, he's a necromancer. It's never really specified. Yeah. So, Ak-Oga.
We've got some European Friedlich and Pardue character names. All right, this brings me to my next question, Rob. What do you think Tom Lazarus, the screenwriter, and Rana Jaffe, who wrote the book this is based off, actually knew about Dungeons and Dragons before writing this?
I would say literally nothing. And I'm willing to bet a lot of money on that. I would say that Rona Jaffe probably read the newspaper reports and then just freewheeled it. I would be surprised if the screenwriter, what's his name, Tom Lazarus?
Tom Lazarus, screenwriter of Stigmata.
I would be impressed to hear that he had read Rona Jaffe's book. I would say that he probably had somebody tell him what the subject matter was, and then using his general knowledge just winged it. That would be my guess.
I'm guessing he read the first part, because the first part really follows the book a lot more closely, because it's more about these characters and their relationship with their parents. The rest of the movie ends up being mostly about Robbie disappearing, which is not the main focus of the book, confusingly enough. And this is maybe one of the last questions I have, Rob, is what do you think the message of this movie, who the fuck is this movie for, and what is it trying to tell them?
That's a great question, because I expected this to be a chick tract, talking about the dangers of Dungeons and Dragons, but it's really not that critical of the game. The game doesn't really cause Robbie to go crazy, and all 3 of the players, though they stop playing, turn out to be pretty well adjusted. So it's not for I guess it's sort of for scared moms, which is what we assumed that this was for.
It's a little lifetimey in that way.
It's extremely lifetimey.
I do love Lifetime, but it is a little lifetime.
It's pretty clear that this was just meant to capitalize on a sensational story from the most recent years, and I don't know that the movie is really trying to say anything at all, believe it or not. I think it's just riding a wave of
airtime. I mean, if it has any message, I feel like it's your shitty rich parents will ruin your children, and this entire generation of 80s kids grown up with no struggle are all doomed, wasting their time with fantasy games.
It presents a very, I'm not sure if this is intentional or not, but a very grim view of upper middle class white New England society. And I don't know that this is intentional. I don't know that it's meant for us to look at these people and think that of how awful they are. But after 40 years or almost 40 years of insight, looking back from the 20 teens, these people just look just awful. Just the worst kind of rich people with no problems, terrible to each other, just can't find meaning in their stupid rich lives. I hate them all. They're awful.
So Rob has gone with this movie has a subversive Marxist message to it.
Again, also, everything I watch these days has that, so take it with a grain of salt, but yeah. Even if it wasn't intended to demonstrate how terrible these people are, it certainly gives that impression.
I think the true, a truly great spin on this is, and I challenge our listeners, someone to do this, is to do a Call of Cthulhu role-playing game where the villains are the parents from this movie, and the reason they're so fucked up is they're all from the inbred New England families, and they're all secret, old gods cultists. And the player characters are their children trying to uncover their parents' misdeeds and stop the apocalypse.
That would be a great take on the Mazes and Monsters.
Any closing thoughts, final favorite quotes from the movie?
My favorite quote was already said. The most dangerous monsters of all are the ones that live in our minds. I honestly, I don't know that you can do any better than that.
I'm gonna have to go with Two Towers. That's Tolkien.
I just want to say that I'm glad that Tom Hanks' career survived this nightmare of a movie, because nobody else did.
No one else, everyone else condemned.
So if there was one deserved, the thing is, we would never know about this movie if Tom Hanks wasn't in it. There are 1,000 movies as bad as this that came out for TV in the 80s, and the only reason anybody has ever heard of this movie is because Tom Hanks happened to be in it. So I guess that's good and bad. Good
for Tom Hanks, America's sweetheart. Bad for Dungeons and Dragons and role-playing games, as this is the first serious attempt at depiction on the screen that wasn't an offhand line or that scene from E.T., which might have been after this.
I think E.T. was later and still just a throwaway scene. And this is definitely one of the first. This is definitely one of the first experiences that ordinary America had with Dungeons and Dragons, and not great. Definitely contributed to the hysteria, which I think, Matt, we're probably going to have to cover in a very...
we're going to do the whole episode on Bothered about Dungeons and Dragons, all the way to, Stackpole's mighty takedown. Savior Michael Stackpole.
God bless Michael Stackpole. But so thanks for listening, everybody. Don't watch this movie. Rate and subscribe.
Go read a Michael Stackpole novel about usually... very filled with cockpits and maneuvering machines or starfighters or something.
Yes. If you must watch a
Gary Sue characters.
Dungeons and Dragons movie, watch the Dungeons and Dragons film starring Marlon Wayans. Much equally as terrible, but substantially more entertaining.
You'll get way more laughs.
Don't use this as your ironic watch. It's not enjoyable. But thanks for listening. Please, if you have questions or thoughts, if you're from New York and can tell us anything about where those streets are, please write us at dmofnone@gmail.com or add us on Twitter at dmofnone. Please, again,
or if you went to a decaying liberal arts college filled with angsty white people that were obsessed with their own problems, also write us.
Also, we'd love to hear from you. We will see you all next week, and keep rolling them dice.
Whatever may happen, where the road may bend,